Okay, so 2020 hemp crop updates. Most fields did well. Sample request forms are slowing down now in Indiana. If you're from out of state, in Indiana, we require sample request forms be sent to the Office of Indiana State Chemist so we can sample the crop before harvest. New diseases have been reported this year. That's probably a comment more for Marguerite, but just as a note. And then kind of a side note, something that to me is troubling, but it's the market shaking out as crop value is continuing to decrease as price per pound of biomass has plummeted in the last 3 years. I don't think when it was $8 a pound, it was sustainable. I'm not so sure now that some people are at the 44 cents a pound range. I don't know that that is sustainable on the other end. I think it's going to end up being a little bit higher than that when the whole market shakes out. Processors. We now have 7 processors up and running in Indiana. At least one additional one built out, put a lot of money into the facility, beautiful facility in southern Indiana, then decided that at the current rate of price of biomass, they really couldn't make a profit. So it sits idled and it's now for sale or lease. We still have no fiber processors up and running. And we'll get into that a little bit later, but being a Midwest state, really good fiber and grain will be a major part of Indiana's production. So here's some crop general numbers. A lot of information on this slide, and it will be recorded so you can see it, and it'll also, I'll send Robert the presentation so he can post it if he wants to. But generally, I just want to point out that there were 8,900 acres of outdoor production registered this year. We know of 2,000 acres that was canceled due to funding or COVID-19 or economic uncertainty. And yet the Farm Service Agency with the USDA branch that records cropland only reported about 2,900 acres. So we are at about 4,000 acres that's undocumented, whether it was planted or not planted. That's something that based on the 2020 year being a research year, our agency did not have in place a mandate to report planting. That all changes with the state plan being approved. That all has to be is mandated now by the USDA. So we had 283 licenses issued this year and about 1,000 grower handler sites. So up more than double from 2019. CBD was the biggest component of acres and square foot. 442 grow sites for CBD. 5,400 acres was registered and over 1 million square foot of indoor grow. Fiber, we had 38 grow sites and 1,667 acres. Other, which included smokable hemp, which is now illegal in Indiana, and I understand Michigan and Illinois it's not. But other was 704 acres. And I know there are several people in Indiana that are struggling with what do they do now that smokable hemp was deemed illegal, and what do they do to maybe, can they possibly turn their crop into a CBD crop or a fiber crop or anything else to gain some revenue off the year. Grain seed and seed oil, again, another area that we anticipate once processors and storage facilities and a final market are really in place, we think that will grow in the Midwest and that we will have more grain seed and seed oil acres and facilities growing. So in Indiana, we partnered with a couple of groups and put together a state hemp heat map where it was grown in the state. And you can see that the darker green areas are where we had more hemp growers located. The interesting thing is that's also kind of where I get the most complaints of hemp growing next to houses, hemp growing next to a neighborhood or in a neighborhood on an empty lot. So one thing we don't discourage, but we encourage people to be aware that if they're going to grow in a residential area or near a residential area or a school, while that's not illegal in any way, shape, or form, it is something that they need to be aware the neighbors may not like that, and the neighbors may do a lot of complaining. So just like a hog farm can be next to a neighborhood, the smell of the hog farm will gather some complaints. And if there's another alternative site, maybe that's the best place to be. Same thing with hemp. If your only possible site is next to a neighborhood, there's no other alternative, then by all means go for it. It's legal. If you have a site that's 3 miles away from the closest neighborhood, although it may not be as perfect of a site, it may make more sense and be less headaches for you. So just passing on the knowledge of our complaints that we get about grows. Harvest numbers. Roughly in Indiana this year, 20% of the crop has gone hot compared to 30% last year. We think the difference, the lowering of hot crop has a lot to do with we pushed, as did the Department of Agriculture and the Midwest Hemp Council and others, a strong education and information campaign to test early and test often. I think the biggest single issue still is genetics, followed by the second biggest issue being it's such a new crop for most growers. They really don't know when to call and tell us that, hey, I think I'm going to harvest within 2 weeks or a month. The harvest must be done 15 days after the official test, and I think people are there's still a lot of guessing on when that will be. So we had one go really hot last year, over 5%. This year we blew that out of the water. We had one that went 13%, and the grower's test actually showed up at 17% THC. So there are still issues in the industry. It's not a known entity. Everything's not worked out. We've had corn in Indiana for 100 plus years, and there are still things we learn about corn every year. I think it's going to be several years before hemp is most crop not hot like that. Some harvest numbers, some most often failed varieties. Cherry wine has failed 16 times this year. Oregon cherry has failed 11 times this year. Bubba Remedy, 9. As we go down that list, we get to Eclipse at 7. The interesting thing about Eclipse is, and I hear this from seed sellers and genetic sellers from out of state, Eclipse will never go hot. It doesn't have it in its makeup to go hot. And yet when you cross from one arid climate, high plains desert like Colorado into Indiana, the growing condition is different and the genetics perform differently. And all of a sudden we've got something that's going hot at a relatively high percentage of the time. So that's something that we want to make everybody aware of. Verify everything and verify that your genetics have been actually grown in the Midwest, where we have more moisture, we have more rain, we have more humidity, and the soils are typically better to make sure that your crop is not going to be one that makes that transition like Eclipse has. So now we're ready for some questions on that part of the presentation. So Robert, do we have anything to answer?
You mentioned that smokable hemp is illegal. Can you clarify that, please? Is it illegal to grow or is it illegal to sell?
It is not illegal to grow, but it is illegal to sell. So that's a good question and a gray area. You can grow the crop because you're not determining at the time of growing what the crop is finally going to be used for. You do have to mark that down, but there's an opportunity to change that. The problem is if you package that for illegal hemp or for smokable hemp, that's illegal. So you would have to sell biomass not packaged or trimmed down for just the smokable flower to be legal. It's a real gray area. I don't know exactly who is going to be the one to regulate that other than right now the state police. There have been lawsuits back and forth from both sides. The state law does say it's illegal. There was a lawsuit that put a temporary injunction on that and made it legal, which is why I think so many people grew it to begin with this year. And then that lawsuit was found in favor of the state law. But I know that there are groups pushing for another lawsuit based on a little bit different tack. So the news is we don't actually regulate smokable once it becomes a product. So it's kind of out of our hands as well. It's really a state police issue. I would encourage people to not plant it though, unless a lawsuit is successful.
So that's a shame, Don, because as you mentioned, biomass and oil prices for hemp have gone down, but the value of smokable flower is actually on the increase, and that is a gray area. So that's something that we got to keep our eyes on.
Yes, it is. In fact, because of the lawsuit right now in our software, which you'll see later in the presentation, we don't even have smokable hemp as an option.
Yes.
We have it made where if that becomes legal, we can change that option pretty quickly, and people can change their intent. But because it's illegal right now, we don't even give that option.
So here's another question is, you have really great data here on field farms. Do you have any data on the performance of indoor grow facilities?
We do not have a lot. Now this slide that's still up, the harvest numbers, most often failed varieties, that's across all outdoor and indoor.
Okay.
We had about 1.7 million acres or square foot that was registered this year. I only know of 100,000 square foot that was not planted out of that 1.74 million. That's all we got notice of. The FSA did not determine to check greenhouses this year like will be the case next year. So in years moving forward, we will have very close to exact numbers on that.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Don. I think we can go on to the next section.
Great. Okay, so the state plan was approved. We were the 29th state in the United States, its territories, and the Indian tribes to get approval. I believe between all of those groups, it's about 65 or 70 different possible groups that could get approval. Several other states have received approval recently, so I think we're up in the mid-30s now of approved plans. And what that means is when you get your plan approved, you actually now are working with the USDA under the 2018 Farm Bill, and everything is now working as a combined federal and state program. So we now have emergency rules in place. For those of you that are not aware, we have statutes that put everything in law, and then the rule or the regulation is what tells you how and where and when that has to happen. So in Indiana, it's a difficult thing to get a rule passed. It takes over a year. So we were given authority at the state chemist office to put in emergency rules to regulate this crop while we were in the process of getting the permanent rule put in place. So the next emergency rule will go into place in January 2021. That's the one that will have the full updates from the state plan approval. A law has spots in it for civil penalties. This is something we really haven't talked about. This is kind of the first time. The law requires us to have civil penalties for people that grow without a license, people that lie on their application, say that they are, say somebody says they're of age to grow, and the state law says they have to be 18 to get a license, and maybe they're 15 and they apply. There's a penalty for that. Those that grow they've got 5 grow sites, but they only registered 2 grow sites for some reason. There are civil penalties that will be eventually put in place for those things. That is not in place yet. That is another regulation or a rule, and that will take, in my opinion, at least a year before any of that goes into place. Again, smokable hemp, we already beat that dead horse, so we'll just move on. There is a document posted on our hemp website, and what you can do is do a Google search for OISC hemp. That's OISC, or Office of Indiana State Chemist hemp. You're going to go to section 1 of that web page, and then you're going to look down in the links, probably about the 3rd or 4th link down. It says Indiana Hemp Plan. It was posted October 22nd. So you can read the entire plan. If you, like Robert said, have insomnia and need some legal documents to read, that's where you can go. The thing to keep in mind when you read a legal document is you can't take one sentence only and look at that one sentence. You need to read that whole paragraph. You need to read that whole section and how it applies overall, not just the one sentence. So that regulates now, the state plan regulates the testing, the sampling, and that's all approved by the USDA. So our sampling methods are now federally approved. It is an 81-page document. It says what is allowed and what is not. It does say what the minimum grow sizes are. Indiana's law and Indiana's regulations don't allow 6 plants on your back porch. It was set up to be a what I'm going to call a legitimate grow, where somebody is actually in the business to sell crop afterwards or to process your own crop. It's not designed as a law or regulation for individual or personal use only. So for anyone that says, I wanted to grow 6 plants and I'm going to use it for smokable hemp, that is not a valid use, not a valid licensing tool. It does confirm yet again, so this is now multiple times, that it is testing for total THC. Anyone that still says it's testing for THC Delta 9 only fails to understand the facts that once THC is heated up or decarboxylated, as the federal and state laws say, it all turns into total THC. So yet again, we are confirming that it is total THC we're testing for. It sets up civil penalties. We talked about that. That's probably going to be at least a year away. Those are yet to even be started to be written. And it requires federal reporting on all key crop activities from 2021 and forward. So when you plant a crop, you have to report that. When you move a crop, you have to report that. When you get a crop harvested, you have to report that. If your crop went hot and you have to dispose of it, you have to report that. The good news is we've really simplified that process, and it's all going to be part of our software. One key thing to remember about this program is it sets up what are key participants. If you are an individual and you work for yourself and only your family works for you, then you are the only key participant, and you would need a federal background check to participate in the hemp program. If, on the other hand, you are a business and say you're a farm and you have a key grower that oversees the growing, you have a manager of the whole farm that oversees workers, those people will need a key participant federal background check. So that was something that was set up by the USDA and by the 2018 Farm Bill, that key participants all have to have they don't have to have their own license, but they do have to have a federal background check. No one in a key role involved in this industry can have a drug conviction in the last 10 years. So that's something that is, there's no wiggle room on that. So if you have someone in your organization or on your farm that does have a drug conviction in the last 10 years, that does not mean that you have to fire them. What that means is they can't be involved in your hemp program. If you're a corn and bean farmer growing 10 acres of hemp, they can do the corn and the beans, they just can't be involved in the hemp program. So they can't transport, they can't trim, they can't weed the crop, they can't do those kind of things. The website, another place where we have some information that is key on the website that we've added here recently. We have an Indiana THC by variety test results. So this is a 4-page document. The next slide I'll show you actually shows 1 page of those 4 pages, but or a screenshot of 1 page. So we've got a place for you to see the presentation there of what varieties typically go hot and what the average is over a 2-year period. We're going to keep that a rolling average so people can see not just a 1 year, but what does this variety have the potential to go hot before I plant it. The other thing that's on there is the Indiana seed permit holders list. There are 92 current Indiana seed permit holders that sell hemp seed. Now, that's more than we have seed permits to sell corn and beans in Indiana, a major corn and bean production state. So here's what I would suggest. When you deal with any of those people, some of them are fantastic, some of them I know nothing about, but I can't make any recommendations other than this. Demand to see seed labels that tell you what a verified in a state seed lab or private seed lab have tested for seed germination rates, purity, whether there's any weeds in the seed, those type of things. Demand to then see the seed lab report that they got their seed germination reports from. So as an example, part of my responsibilities are in the Indiana State Seed Lab. If someone uses our test and their germination rate was 57%, and yet their seed label says 85%, and you saw both documents, you would know that that seed supplier was not telling you the truth about that seed test, and you're best to go someplace else. So when you get the seed lab report on germination and purity, that's an important document. Some companies may choose to say they don't want to give you that information. If they don't, I'd move on. Also, you need to verify the average THC by variety from our website or the Purdue website, and you should verify everything before you buy seed from anyone. This is a relatively new market, and I hate to say it, but there are shysters out there. There are crooks out there who would try to sell you seed at an expensive price and give you something else. Earlier, I told you about the one variety that tested at 13% THC. That was because of a shyster. An Indiana grower, meaning well, trying to grow CBD hemp, bought seed from another state. The seed seller from another state actually sold marijuana seed to Indiana growers. So that grower got marijuana seed unbeknownst to him. He found out about it when the state police and I showed up at his door because of a really hot test result. So he was very cooperative. Nothing's going to happen to him. He's not going to be prosecuted. His crop was detained, obviously. We're not a legal marijuana state, and the hemp laws and the marijuana laws are separate. So, but now he knows probably to work more closely with the seed permit holders list and to verify everything before he buys from another state that even the guy didn't have a permit in his own state. So here's I think this is page 2 or 3 of the average hemp total THC by variety. We are looking at it right now with, these are ones that averaged hot. There's plenty of varieties that have not averaged hot. But we talked about Eclipse earlier as one that's testing hot as many times or more than it's not. On here, you can see it averages 0.42. So Trump, one, something that a lot of people were growing last year, many less people growing this year, it averages 0.94. So here's another one on here, Box Ellie. I hear from the Box developer in Colorado that he's only sold his actual Box variety to 1 or 2 growers in Indiana, and yet we have Box Ellie that averages hot. So is Box Ellie actually a variety, or did somebody change the name to play off of that Box name? something we don't quite know yet. We're still trying to play those things out and see whether people are telling the truth in their breeding practices or not. So that's that section of the presentation, and we'll see if there are any questions.
Don, can you hear?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so I have a couple questions. This one is for me. It's just curious. We've talked about how your program is self-funded, and
Yes.
in the plan there's penalties. Do the funds go to your program so it keeps it perpetuating, or do they go elsewhere?
They actually go elsewhere. By law, they go to the Department of Agriculture to promote and help develop the hemp industry.
Okay.
So they stay within the industry, but they're used by the Department of Agriculture in Indiana, which is a marketing and non-regulatory program.
Another question we had is, to get your plan passed, does it have to use total THC as the threshold versus Delta 9?
Yes. So you will not get. Yep, you will not get a plan passed if you don't use total THC.
So every state that has a plan passed is using total THC.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
And another area, you talked a lot about regulating seeds. Are there any regulations for starter plants, for seedlings and clones?
At this point, there are not. I believe that's something I've got a little birdie in the state legislature that may push for that. This will be a little bit of a shortened session, I believe, because of COVID. I don't know if that'll get passed or not. I believe if it does get passed, it probably would be the Plant Health Board from the state of Indiana. Probably would not be a Office of Indiana State Chemist regulatory process, but more of the plant board through the DNR.
Any recommendations to buyers of starter plants on how they can be careful and do their due diligence, make sure they're getting quality plants?
That's a tougher one because it's not under our control, so to speak. Again, I would only buy from people that can give you references and references of people that are very happy with what they bought from the grower. We have plenty of those growers in the state that did a great job and provided some good plants. We've got anecdotal evidence that there are some growers that provided less than stellar plants and at the last minute said, hey, I didn't get that variety to grow, so here's your crop, and it's in a different variety, and it's a variety that goes hot. So I would ask for references of people that have bought from them successfully in the past.
All right, well, thank you, Don. No more questions if you want to do your final session. Okay, great. I've got about 3 or 4 slides here on software and licensing. This is the first time in the world this has been shown. So those of you on the presentation, you are the lucky few here. You're seeing what nobody else has seen so far. The plan is to start licensing soon. The original plan was this week, but we're doing software testing to make sure everything is right before we roll it out. Fees now apply after several years of being free because it was a research year. Fees will apply because this is going to be a commercial year. We are required by state law to cover our expenses and we get no tax money. So we have to do this on a fee basis. Indiana is also a fee basis based on seed, feed, fertilizer, and pesticides. So that's how the Office of Indiana State Chemist works. That is the case with many regulatory bodies across the country. Probably the first time that hemp people have run into this will be last year in some states and this coming year in many states. So no tax funds or state funds go to OISC in any way, shape, or form. That's probably a good thing. You don't want your regulatory body, you want them to be independent. You don't want them to be managed by the legislature. So priorities change from year to year based on what was voted on. Those fees cover, we get a lot of questions about this. So here's what those fees cover. The software that you'll see this morning cost a minimum of $150,000. That price continues to go up. That was the initial layout. That covers the chemists that run the tests, the testing equipment, the lab space,
The new lab that was established in 2020 will be, as part of that, covers the personnel who run the computers, covers the computers themselves and the equipment to run the samples, the sample itself, the people that do the sampling, the inspectors, their vehicles, the portion of their vehicles at least that is involved in hemp, and the reporting and the verification of the program. Total expenses so far that we have put out at OISC are about $1 million. So we, over the last 5 years, have spent about $1 million on the hemp program and received $0 in income off of it. So one thing that we are not doing, don't be scared here, we're not going to charge for those $1 million. We're going to charge for what it is going forward. And that's how we ran all the numbers and came up with $750. Also be aware, if we get a year or two into this and determine that $750 is not enough, that fee can go up. However, if we determine that that $750 is more than covering our expenses, then that fee will go down. You have that as a commitment from me and from our agency. This is designed to be a break-even program. It is not a money maker for OISC. We are not in the money-making business. We are more of a break-even program. Understand, break-even needs to cover the new equipment when we need to replace equipment, those type of things. So we'll know that number in probably another 2 years. A breakdown of Midwest fee structures. Indiana's is $750 for a grower or a handler, $1,500 for both, and variety or coordinate change is $50. We're going to compare that as an example here to Kentucky. So Kentucky, if you had, we're running this based on 3 sites. If you had 3 sites, you would be at $1,400 in Kentucky to get a grower license, an additional $500 to get a handler license, or if you had in Kentucky a floral processor license, it's $3,000 and $750 per change. Now, to put that in perspective, it's a rare grower in Indiana over the last 5 years that did not have several changes to their grow site or their drying sites. So in Indiana, we will let you log in for a day and make all the changes you need for $50. In Kentucky, that's $50 or $750 per change. So when you look at that, I think we're pretty competitive. When you look at Ohio, our state to the east, it would be $600 for a grower license, $500 for a handler license on top of that, and then $250 for every change. So I think we're competitive as far as fees go. We're trying to put the fees up on the front end and not nickel and dime you with a bunch of fees for everything you do. You see some states have multiple fees, so much per acre. Wisconsin is $150, but then $5 per acre. On top of that, $50 change fee or $5 per acre. Those fees add up pretty quickly. So just to put it in perspective, looks like Michigan is lower than us. Illinois is higher. Wisconsin would be higher if you took an average grow. Kentucky would be higher if you took an average grow, and Ohio would be similar to what we're at. So that's kind of the breakdown of where the states surrounding us are. We thank the Midwest Hemp Council for putting that together. Background checks. Those have to be done a maximum, not a minimum, but a maximum of 60 days prior to the application date. That is an FBI and USDA requirement. On our website, or you can email me and I will send you the information on how to get your background check. You will be sent a PDF result of your background check, and then when you get to the software, you're going to upload that PDF. So that's what's going on with that. Now we're going to show you the live presentation of the software here. Looks like we've got some minutes left to show you that, but I want to let you know this is a test site. So we're going to skip out of screen sharing for just a second and log back into screen sharing. And can everybody now see my OISC login page?
Yes, looks great.
Perfect, perfect. All right, we're going to get to the meat and potatoes of this pretty quickly, but you're going to register as a new user down here where my cursor is. I've already done that with several dummy emails and test sites. So now I'm going to log in. I've already got a license on this test site. So if once you get your license, your first page, your home page is going to show you what is needed. So if you have to add some information, or you have to add like your farm service agency number or those type of things, it's going to allow you a quick link to go right to that. We're going to spend more money or more time today here right on the application itself. So here's the application. This is going to be what it's going to look like, other than it's probably going to be co-branded for our agency. The applicant type is going to be a required field, anything with a star. So I'm going to apply as a company here. I'm going to apply on behalf of a new company, so I can show you that. And we're going to apply as Hemp are us. Company full legal name, Hemp are really us. Excuse my typos in this, so I'll just keep moving so I don't spend a lot of time. I'm going to grab 123 Main Street off of a license I've already put in there, but you're going to put your legal address in. I need a phone number, so we're going to put in here my office work number and email address. And then if your company physical address is the same as your business legal mailing address, all you're going to do is click the button here. It's going to preload that population. This is a requirement from the federal government. If you're applying as a company, you should have an EIN number or a business identification number. And you're going to put that in here. I'm going to choose just all ones here. And I'm going to show you a neat part of the software. So I've got it all filled out. I'm the primary business contact name. We can either move to license type after everything's filled out. We can either move by hitting the next tab or by using the next button up here. When I do that, it tells me above up here that please correct all page errors below before saving. And it's going to in red tell you where you need to correct an error. So I put in too many digits in an EIN number. So now I'm going to make that a smaller number and it'll accept it. And we're going to move on to license type. License type is going to be grower or handler. If you are online and you are a university employed researcher doing university work, you're going to click grower, and then you're going to click this checkbox that says you are a university employee. We will verify that through your email address and through other forms of verification. But there you go. That's how you're going to register. But we're going to say we're a grower. If we were a handler, we would check here as well. And then if we were a DEA approved laboratory, we would check there and put in our DEA number. And if we were a certified crop advisor who will be allowed to do scouting and things like that on these crops, you would check there and put in your CCA number. However, we're just going to go with grower because it's going to be easier for the presentation. Again, I can either now go to key participants or I can go to key participants on the next tab. I'm used to kind of using the next tab, so that's what I'm going to do. Here's where we add key participants. So just so you see that again, I'm going to cancel, and it's the plus with add key participants. I'm going to add Joe Schmo. Again, excuse my typos. And for purpose of time, we're going to move forward pretty quickly here. Job title is required for a key participant. So we're going to say manager. Email address is going to be joe@hemprus.com. So there we go. Now here's where you're going to upload your background check. You're going to choose a file. What I'm going to do is just going to grab a quick PDF, any old PDF right here, but you're going to upload your background check either as a PDF or as an image file, a photo file. It will not load as a Word file. It's locked down, so it's only going to be an image or PDF, so it couldn't be changed. Then you're going to save that. So now Joe Schmo, mistyped there, but Joe Schmo is a key participant. We're going to move forward as if Joe was our only key participant. You can see the green bar at the top that was saved. Affirmations, this is actually where you're going to determine whether you want your information to be held confidential. Down here, I want nobody else to know about my program, only the OISC people and the sheriff and state police will know about my information. Or you can say, I want it to be not confidential. When you click on not confidential, that list will go on a public web page. So you can click here by using the same information on the applicant page, or I could click off and give different information. Say Joe doesn't want everybody contacting him, and I'm the owner of this organization. I don't want everybody contacting me, so I'm going to put in somebody else's email address, or I'm going to put a different address for who I want people to contact. That type of thing, different phone number, you can do that. For purposes of ease, we're going to go ahead and say we're going to collect the same data that will go on the website. So that's that part. Now here's where it's really slick. For those of you that have been putting up with our PDF process the last couple, 2-3 years, where we have been trying our best to work without software, this is where it's really going to pay off for you. So there are some attestations here. You're going to say that yes, the crop is sold, or you know where it's going to be processed. Here's a list of THCs by variety updates. That's the list that is I showed you earlier. This is the complete list. So before you put in your varieties, you can check that list out and make sure your varieties are not going hot. You're going to check this box saying that you've received that document, that you've seen it. Growing hemp plants or possessing hemp material in quantities less than required growing space is a violation of the law. So you're going to check this box saying that you've checked it. For purposes of a demonstration, I'm going to check off of that box and we're going to move forward with this. I'm going to show you what happens. So now we're going to add a site. Rather than you having to go through and find your own coordinates, now it's all part of the software. So you have to put a site purpose. So a grower can grow or dry and process his own crop. So this is going to be a grow site. And I'm going to say field 1 is that. So latitude and longitude are not filled in. We're asking you to use the map for that. So I'm going to zoom in here and I'm going to pick a random field. I'm going to pick this field surrounding that property. And there it is. Now latitude and longitude are already filled in and they are ready to go to a mapping program that we will use and the state police will use to verify your crop. This will keep the state police from flying over your crop when they do the drug scans and landing and saying, hey, we think it's an illegal marijuana grow. So that's pretty slick. Now we're going to scroll down. You can put in a site street address if you want to. It's not required. As you see, no red dot there. It is required what state. We only accept grow sites in Indiana, and you do have to put county. I don't know what county I'm in there. I'm going to go ahead and pick Cass. So eventually, we hope that this county is already preloaded when you pick your spot. But right now it's not. So size, I'm going to say that's a 2-acre plot. If it was an indoor grow up here, you're going to attest that this is not in a residence and say I did the indoor grow. I'm going to pick this barn as the indoor grow. And you're going to put size on here, 2,000 square feet. So if you'll notice, the size changed from acres to square feet. So it automatically does that for you. So we're going to leave it as indoor. Variety, we're going to do test 1 as your variety. We're going to add that variety to the database of varieties. Then we're going to go to purpose. It's going to be cannabinoids. We can go to other, and you can put in here something that has not been thought of yet. As long as it's a legal use, you can go ahead and put other in here, but we've used cannabinoids, edible grain, feminized seed, fiber, seed breeding farm, and seed oil. So we think we've pretty well hit what's legal in Indiana. Now I'm going to save that spot. When I do that, the spot is saved. All right, that site is saved. I'm going to add one more site real quickly just so you'll see it. It's going to be a drying and processing site, and it's going to be barn. It's going to be an indoor site as well. A test that's not in a residence. We're going to zoom back in again here, and my site is going to be pretty far away from where my first one was, but we're going to use this barn. We're going to click on the center of the barn for purposes of the program. You'll see down here on growing sites or on drying and processing sites, we don't ask you what the variety is. We already know what the variety is from the growing site. So I'm going to save that again. Unable to edit, state is required. See, I messed up. I need to put in state because on growing and processing sites, we realize some people along the edges of the state might actually have their processing site in Illinois, Michigan, Kentucky, or Ohio. So there we go. And I'm going to go ahead and pick Clinton County on this one, which now it's required. Save it. I get the green bar saying everything was uploaded successfully. So we're going to move on to the next section here. And when I go to sources, it's going to give me my sources page. I'm going to add a source. This is who you're buying from, seed. Eventually on this page will be a link to the list of Indiana certified, the Indiana seed permit holders. Hemp Seeds Inc. is going to be the list. We don't require a lot of information on here. As you can see, there's not a lot of red on here. If it is a seed source, one of the things we're working on, we will require the name of the seed source. But if it's a clone supplier, cutting starts, mother plants, we're not going to require the name of the business. We would like that information because it helps protect people. If we know 5 growers bought from the same guy and he quit selling, which we had one situation like that this year, didn't fill his contract, then we can pursue that on behalf of the growers. So it's a benefit to you to fill in the business name. We're going to save that. Again, I get the green bar saying that was successfully added. I'm going to go to affirmations. This is the legal page. So I'm going to click on these affirmations. You're going to want to read these, but I've read them 1,000 times. These are the legal affirmations, the things that say where in law you find that it's a violation to raise hemp that adopted by a state commission results in field sample aggregate unless, you know, it goes into all the legal details. I'm going to leave one of these unchecked. And I'm going to show you what happens when I go to pay and submit. It tells me I can do that. Here's where you're going to get that. When I go to pay, it's going to tell me I have areas that are not filled out, and it will tell me where. So for purposes of this presentation, I'm going to go to pay by a cashier's check or money order. I'm going to submit the application, and it says, please correct the following errors before submitting the application. Under sites, I have to agree to all site attestations, and under affirmations, I need to agree to all additional affirmations. So I'm going to go back to sites. I know which one I missed because I did it on purpose. I didn't check the box saying I've read about the minimum spaces. And then I'm going to go to affirmations, and I know which one I missed because I did it on purpose. I missed this one. Then I'm going to go pay and submit. That's it. We have it set up for ease to pay with a company credit card, company debit card, personal credit card, personal debit card type thing. That's the easy part. You're just going to click on TouchNet and go. As soon as that's paid, your license will start the review process, and probably within about a week, you'll have your license. If you go to pay by cashier's check, as we've learned the hard way in our agency, cashier's check and money orders can be faked. So we wait until that cashier's check processes and clears before we give you your license. But now that I've said how I'm going to pay, I'm going to submit the application, and I get the green bar. My application was submitted successfully. I am application number 26. That does not mean I am a license number 26. This is just a number that tracks what application you are. That's the 26th license I've done. So you will receive a response within 15 business days. I don't think it'll take us 15 days, but once you've gotten to this point, you can go back in and see what you submitted. You can see your grow site. You can see your barn. For drying, you can see your key participants. Actually, you can still add a key participant at this point. Say you just hired somebody. So that's the beginning stages of the software. We will be doing a series of short videos on how to do this, but you are the first people to see it. So Robert, if there are questions now, I can happily answer them, maybe navigate and show some people some other things.
Thank you very much, Don. That was a lot of information to cover in a short time. You did a great job. The first questions, the obvious one and simple ones, when is the software going to be ready?
We have a little bet going in the office. I think it'll be ready within a couple of weeks or less. Some people think it'll be the 1st of December because of all the testing we're doing. Again, this was completely custom software, so there was nothing to build off of. Most states are kind of having to go through that same thing. I think we'll still be in plenty of time to get people licensed before the end of the year. I don't think there will be any problem at all with that. If they have their sites ready, if they have their varieties, or at least planned varieties ready, and their key participants ready, as you can see, I did a full application in 15 minutes. Now I know what I'm doing. I've gone through the software several times, so maybe it'll take 30 minutes. But I think once we get the information, we can start processing these right away. We've got a full team of people working on this year. So I think it'll only take about a week to get your license in most cases. And then you're good to go from that point all the way through the end of 2021.
Another question is we have a farmer here that grows, dries, processes, and sells their own CBD.
Yes.
Do they have to apply for both a grower and a handler license, or just a grower?
Just a grower license. If you don't handle anybody else's crop, you are just a grower.
Great.
So that's definitely a place. When we made that determination early on, because we didn't want someone to have to get 2 licenses for their own farm unless they were working with another farm.
Here's a company from Michigan. They were told that they need to include the legal description of the growing site in addition to their GPS. And they thought that was to satisfy federal requirements. Is that true or not true for Indiana?
It's not true for Indiana. The way we read the requirements and the way our plan was approved by the USDA was that latitude, longitude would work.
Great. On one of your slides, you showed a comparison of different costs for applying for applications for different states. In there,
yes,
it showed the density at 1,500. What does that mean, and do you have any flexibility on that?
Yes, that density is for immature plants. For mature plants, the density is a minimum of 300 plants. We arrived at those numbers with the industry council, who said, based on what the state law says and the regulations, that it's really not designed to be an individual crop for yourself. It's designed to be something that you're going to process and sell through lotions, creams, soaps, whatever. So 300 plants is the density for a mature crop. 1,500 plants is the density for an immature crop.
And that's just minimum density, correct?
Yes, yes. Okay. They can have plenty more than that.
Excellent.
There is no limit on the maximum amount.
All right, I think that covered all the questions. And again, thank you very much, Don. That was a very informative presentation, and it was very timely. And we all appreciate what you've done to help build a credible, reliable hemp industry in the state of Indiana and the Midwest. So a big round of applause for Don, for those that can clap. Since you can't hear it, you could show it on the chat function. Our next webinar will be on Wednesday, December 2nd at noon Central Time. We'll have 2 speakers, Ryan Ballone from KC Labs, who's going to share tips for picking analytical labs, and Troy Etchison, Edith Rose Farms. He's going to share tales from the field and exchanges experience with planting over 50 varieties of hemp plants. I wish all of you a happy Thanksgiving. I'm Robert Colangelo. Thanks for helping us make Hemp Day, and have a great week. And thank you, Don.
Thank you all. Thank you all. If we can help, just send me an email or call me.
All right.